And you are all set to go, Rose. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Erica. All right, well, welcome everybody. I appreciate you attending today, and I just want to first thank Erica and Kelly and the Chamber, really working so hard to make sure that our community has opportunity to stay connected and informed on real-time information that we all really need at this time. So thank you to them. This is the second time that I'm presenting over the last couple of weeks for the Chamber. Different content, so if you do have a chance, go back if you didn't attend the first one. If you take a look at the first one I did, it's still very relevant information. So make sure that you check out mine and all the others that have provided this information if you haven't yet. So first thing I always say is make sure you're ready to take notes. If you've heard me speak before, I always say I'm an action coach, and I'm going to talk a little bit about action coach, but I'm an action coach. I'm not a think about it coach. So I want to make sure that you end here today with real actions that you can take to continue to advance you and your business within the current environment. Also use the chat for any Q&A, for any questions, and we'll do a Q&A at the end. So let's get started. Let's see. So first, hopefully you'll see an advancement of my screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, so first a little bit about Action Coach. If you haven't heard of Action Coach, we are the world's #1 business coaching firm. We have over 1,000 coaches in over 80 countries, so across the world. We're privately owned. I'm a franchise owner here in Tampa. And given the span of the globe that we touch, the businesses that we touch, think about the opportunity that I have through me and other coaches. Really, there isn't a problem or a challenge that we haven't solved collectively for a business, and particularly around times like this. So there's been lots of economic crises in the past, and we've been around for 27 years. So we've certainly had our fair share of getting businesses through these times. So it's times like this that we really leverage each other to help bring the best approaches, methodologies, and actions to our clients and to our communities. Our vision is to create world abundance through business re-education. What that really means is we have a real focus on education. So educating our business owner community and our clients, helping them figure out what to apply to their business in the right way with the right time, and then ultimately holding them accountable so that they can advance the business and have a greater level of certainty for success of their business. So that's really what we do. And on average, we're coaching about 18,000 businesses a week. So certainly now more than ever, we're touching a lot of businesses and really helping them through this time. So that's a little bit about Action Coach if you hadn't heard of us before. And I'm going to jump into a high level what we're going to cover today. So we're talking about innovating and reallocating, and your business right now could be anywhere. It could be open, could be completely shut, it could be likely somewhere in between. No matter where your business is, the content today that we're going to talk about is really relevant. It's about the context of where you are, and at the end I'm actually going to show you something that talks about the phases that you can think about and where to apply some of these things depending on where you are, because we know that things are changing in a phased approach in our environment as well. But the things I'm going to talk about, I'm going to first talk about mindset. Mindset matters. And if you can tell even just from the graphic there to the right, everything revolves around mindset. I believe that the actions you take are going to be fueled by the emotions and the energy that you have, and it all starts with mindset. So if we're not really focused on our mindset, the rest doesn't matter. We're not going to be able to accomplish the things that we need to accomplish. So I'm going to give you a couple of ways to think about your mindset and some tools around that. And then we're going to talk about business pivots. What has to change in your business when you think about structure and organization? And then we'll move on and we'll talk about product and services. You know, how do you need to potentially evolve your products and services, particularly in this marketplace, which is significantly different than it was just a month ago. We know that you've got to make some shifts and some changes in your products and services. And then once you get clarity on those things, how do you start to communicate those things to your audience? How do you communicate through your sales and marketing efforts any of the shifts and the pivots that you've had to make within your business? And then we'll talk about team and resources. Is your team equipped to deliver on, and are you resourced to deliver on those things that now you have clarity on with your business? So those are the things that we're going to cover today. So let's jump right in. We're going to talk about mindset. Like I said, I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, starting with this quote. The mind has a powerful way of attracting things that are in harmony with it, whether it's good or bad. Right? So that's a pretty powerful quote when we think about things. So for right now, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to get centered on where is your mindset. And here's a list of things for you to consider. And you don't have to share, but I just want you to really focus on what is your mindset right now? Are you feeling inspired, optimistic? Are you hopeful? Perhaps you're concerned or feeling anxious or even fearful. I just want you to pause and really get yourself centered on where your mindset is right now. And I also want you to think about, it's important to get grounded in where your mindset is. And I recognize that this might change hourly at this point. You might go through all of these within a day, but what's important is to keep you grounded where it is and push yourself to a positive mindset. And here's why. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we call at Action Coach the point of power. It's important to understand where your mindset is and what it's attracting. And so I'm going to talk to you a little bit, educate you on what we use to talk about as the point of power. So here you see a point in the middle of my PowerPoint slide. I like to call it the point of choice because I do think our mindset is a choice. Now the crisis might have us feeling, the crisis is allowing us to easily fall below this point of power, where we can fall easily into things like blame, excuse, and denial. And when we're below that point of power, it's draining us. It's draining our energy. It's draining our ability to take action. And it's really not allowing us to do the things we need to do ultimately to make sure that we are successful or that we are healthy or that our families are taken care of. So we can fall into this blame, excuse, denial. What I'm suggesting is that you really focus on being above the point of power, taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility really for everything in your life. And I mean everything, regardless of the situation that's going on around you. Now, to stay above that point of power, it's a conscious commitment and choice to stay above, to decide what your mindset is going to be. And it's important now more than ever, particularly as leaders of your business, as leaders in the community, as leaders of your team, to be a role model for those around you. Now, we're all human. It doesn't mean that sometimes you don't fall below, but you've got to take the actions and have the wherewithal to stay above and come back above the point of power so that you can advance through not only this challenge, but really through any challenge, because there'll be other things that come up that we just don't have clarity to right now. And when you think about, there's a process that I've been thinking about as we've been going through these challenges that ties to responsibility. I talk to my clients, and I mentioned it earlier, a lot around accountability and responsibility. And there's a process that this might resonate with you. Some of you might find yourself in one of these circles or sort of flowing through these circles during the last few weeks and even now and today around how you're feeling and how you're viewing the world. So if you think about denial, particularly maybe when the crisis started, we probably all had a little bit of denial. We didn't have enough information or facts to know or to believe what was really coming or what was going to happen. So it was easy for us to sit in denial. And even when some things started to show that they were true, we still sat in a bit of denial. But that denial then became blame, right? We started to realize how difficult this was going to be. The the decisions we were going to have to make around team and our business, around cost cutting. And it started to allow us, sort of the easy way out is to blame. Maybe we blame the government, maybe we blame China, maybe we blame the virus itself, but we allow ourselves to sit in that blame. And when we do that, what tends to happen is then we tend to start to justify our decisions or our non-decisions, right? It's easy to blame somebody else and put off. We come up with the best excuses in the world of why we can't do something or why we won't do something. And so we sit there in this justification phase. And then what happens from there is that leads to shame, right? These feelings or this notion of, now you start to realize I should have or I could have, but I didn't do those things that I really needed to do. And we start to feel a little bit of that shame, which leads to wanting to quit. And that might be quitting a task. It might be quitting something bigger like the business itself. What I'm suggesting is that you will flow through these things. We've got to push ourselves and continue to fight. Now, when I think about the fighting part, we end up in this place of obligation. And this might sound familiar. Well, now I have to go do this. I have to fight for the team. I have to start marketing. I have to start selling. The reality is, even in that obligation stage where you're saying those things like I have to, you really are not yet at the responsibility phase. The difference between the obligation phase where you'll do it, but a little bit begrudgingly, versus taking responsibility. When you take full responsibility, you start to say things and believe things like, I choose to, I commit to. Right? You're making those bold choices, and now you're saying things differently. I choose to get up early to work on those things that I know I need to work on. I choose to engage my team to figure out the path we need to take. I'm choosing to pivot my business. It's different than I have to, that obligation stage. And so I challenge you, as you think about all the things that we need to do, is to continue to focus on your mindset and really taking full responsibility. And responsibility, it has to be chosen, and it can't be delegated. This is something that we have to find within ourselves and make those decisions to really continue to advance us. So I hope that resonates with you and you think about responsibility. And then I want to talk about one more thing on mindset, which is really around the identity iceberg. And you might be familiar with this concept. And what this really intends to tell us is that above the iceberg, we can see above the iceberg, and we only see certain things. And those things that we see results, and we see the actions, and we can see the decisions and the behavior that drive those results. Those are things we can see. What I want you to remember is that underneath the iceberg are a lot of things that we can't see and that others can't see in us. Things like your real skills, the beliefs, your belief system, what your values are, and your identity. And all of those things that are underneath the iceberg, underneath the water, are really built through our environment, right? Things we've been exposed to over time have helped us build all of these things that are underneath. The reason I'm talking about this now is, in a crisis, it is really so important that we take pause to assess and reaffirm these things for ourselves. Make sure that you're clear on what your identity is and what you want your identity to be. What are your values? Are you anchored on your values? Have they shifted? What are your beliefs? And particularly skills, also in skills, being closest to the outside of the iceberg is actually something that you want to get really anchored on and potentially continue to advance. But now I want to talk about the environment. Frankly, the environment has been beating us up right now. And the environment, we have to be careful that we don't allow the environment to shift what our skills and beliefs and values and identity are, sort of unknowingly or without conscious thinking. And what this means, what I'd like you to think about is, what are you feeding your environment? Some of it is outside of our control right now, but there are a lot of things that are inside of our control. It could be things like, how much news are you watching? Who are you talking to? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Are they fueling your beliefs and values and identity to who you know you are and who you want to be? Or are they really beating you up underneath the iceberg, and it's having a negative effect on you, draining you, and making you not clear on what these things mean for you? So think about that identity iceberg and really protect your environment as best you can, so that you can continue to be anchored in who you are through this, for yourself, for your family, for your teams. And then I want to talk about failure. People have a fear of failure. Sometimes that failure makes us just stop doing things. And here's what I want to tell you: the only failure is the failure to participate. You're going to have to try new things. You're going to have to put yourself out there in different ways right now. And you will have, some of those things won't work, right? So you can call them failures. They're just things that aren't going to work. But you're out there and you're actively participating and you're doing, and I guarantee that you will make progress, you will learn, and you will continue to move forward. So the most important thing is to continue to participate, which you're doing as an example today, by continuing to stay engaged in your community, by continuing to access information that can be valuable for you, but make sure that you're continuing to participate. Okay, so some things for you to think about on mindset. And now let's jump into phase 2. So business structure. Here's a quote: an organization, no matter how well designed, is only as good as the people who live in it and work in it. So you really need to think about your business structure and what has to happen in your business right now, given some of the changes or some of the influences that are happening to your particular situation. So what organization shifts do you have to make? Where do you need to adapt to meet the changing marketplace? Do you need to simplify or downsize, perhaps change reporting structures within your business? We really need to think about organizational shifts. The other thing I wanted to say before I go through all this, one way to think about what I'm sharing with you today is like a checklist, right? So when we get off this webinar, something to think about is creating a checklist. Have I literally gone and at least made sure I've considered all of these things in the business, and what do I need to take action on? So back to business structure, one thing is organizational shifts. Another are roles. What roles do you need in your business now? Now this could be from shifts you're making in your product and services. It could be just that you've had to downsize, therefore sort of spread the love across fewer people. But what has to shift in the roles? And even, sort of tying roles and cost structure pivots together, how can you shift some of your resources that have been historically business facing to be more market facing? So can you have more resources within your organization that are more revenue and profit generating versus just the cost structure in your organization? So really think about that. I've got a lot of clients who we've gone and we've tapped into their teams to find out what hidden talents there might be. And now we've got some folks that were doing sort of internal jobs in the past, now doing some sales calls or some client-facing work to educate
looks like we lost Rose.
Yep. Sorry about that, guys. Let's give it a couple minutes. She might be trying to log back on.
She's back there now.
There she is.
Boy, I don't know. At what point did you lose me?
Probably like the last 45 seconds.
Yeah, not too long.
Not too long. Okay, let me go back to my share. It was probably the best part, probably the best thing I was going to say all day. Is what you missed.
You're talking about internal jobs, basically, where we lost you.
Okay. Let's hope that's not a sign of things to come. Okay, so cost structure, so shifting from, shifting our costs, some of our costs to more profit opportunities. And then inbound and outbound delivery models, we know this has happened a lot. How do you need to shift? Does your business need to move towards that more outbound? We see this a lot in restaurants right now, more delivery, but we see it in other areas. I had a friend actually who sells wine, and they've moved to not only delivery for the wine, but also delivering their tastings virtually, right? So how do you start to shift that delivery model? And identifying the weak link. So focus our energy, when you identify the weak link in your business, and this is something I suggest you really think about, what is the one thing that you think is the biggest weak link in your business right now? And if you put your focus and energy and attention and commit to that, you will see an improvement there. But first you have to identify it. What is the weak link? And resolution, what can you do that in your business that maybe you've never done before? I've been having this conversation a lot with some folks, and what's interesting, there's always opportunity in a crisis. And what people have done is said, you know, I hear a lot of this, for years I've thought about doing this, but I just didn't give it the time and energy, and now I'm doing it. So what can you resolution in your business? There's no crazy ideas these days. It's really about making sure the most important thing is that you understand what your market is looking for, and it's something that you can deliver on. So a little bit more about the pivots in the business. So now you've made some changes in the business, and I'm going to admit that word pivot drives me crazy. I don't know if any of you are over that word, as I am here using it, but changes are required. So now once you make the changes, here's something I want you to remember. People are moving really quickly, and you're using your ingenuity, and you're making changes in your business as you need to, which is great. What we want to make sure is that you're also thinking that through to measurements. What measurements or KPIs or key performance indicators do you need to make sure you're watching in your business to know that they were the right changes that you've made and that they're getting you the results that you're looking for? So here's another thing for you to think about is, what are those measurements in your business? Some of them may have shifted. You might need to think about some new ones when you think about those key performance indicators. So they need to be around any new activities that you've created in your business, and any new standards by role or by team. Like I said, I'm seeing a lot of what we're doing is shifting roles. Sometimes it's combining roles because they're doing more with fewer resources. Sometimes it's they've had to create a new role, but making sure that that the business owner is clear, so that your team is clear on what those standards and success measures are by team and by role. The other thing is, what's the proper cadence of activities for reporting? Is it daily? Is it weekly? Making sure that you're watching and monitoring those things in your business that need to be watched. One thing that, as an example, is cash flow. So hopefully you're watching your cash flow. You've got a cash flow that you normally look at, different than having your CPA or your bookkeeper send you your cash flow. When I talk about cash flow, I'm talking about cash flow forecasting. And we've really moved to daily, no less than weekly, watching of the cash flow forecast to make sure we understand where the cash is coming in, where the cash is going out so that we can make decisions there. But that's been a shift where now a lot of times we're looking at that daily. So making sure you're looking at the right things at the right time. Making sure you're clear on the outcomes from the outcomes of the activities that you've created, updating all your scorecards and metrics, and really important is communicate and make visible to your team and to who needs to see it what the scorecard is. We're moving so fast, don't assume that your team or others know what you now are expecting of them. So it's really important to keep that visible. And then training on new activities and what the expected outcomes are and the measures. So now's a real time for a training shift as well. We want to make sure that as we're making changes, we're identifying what new training has to happen. This could be for yourself and for your team. It could even be, we could call it training, you know, how do I need to re-educate some of my customers on what's happening? So those are some additional pivots when you think about the business structure. So going back to my question around what's your biggest challenge, I want you to take a minute now and think about this. What is the greatest challenge in your business right now? Just to give you a moment, you know, and just write it down for yourself. Is it team? Is it around time? Systems? Perhaps it's sales, cash flow, profits. You know, what's the greatest challenge right now? And whatever you've written down, make sure that when you're done with this webinar, that's something you say, I'm going to go figure that out. I'm going to go take action on that. Because when you start to solve that, the other thing, you know, it'll make other things better. So just, again, ground yourself on what you think your greatest challenge is, give it focus and attention, and it will improve. So let's move on to phase 3, product, service, and pivots. Here's a powerful yet simple rule. Always give people more than they expect to get. So the concept of over-delivering. We use a phrase here at ActionCOACH. We call them CNEs, critical but non-essential. So how are you over-delivering, and how are you finding ways to really over-deliver for your customer, or delighting your customer in times like this? You know, actually I've got a client who that's their mantra right now is client delight. How are we delivering for our clients in a way that they didn't expect? And really that's around over delivery. So what has to happen there? How can you anticipate the new needs of your customer? So this is where really, this is an opportunity, you know, if you know any of the old, you know, sales approaches, it's really more ask than tell. More ask and open-ended questions and listening. It's more important now than ever to really listen at one ask and then be quiet and listen to our customers to understand what their needs are right now. And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to reach out to those loyal customers that you have and understand what do they need now, and how can you continue to deliver in a way that they have new needs. So how can you deliver for those, and where can you shift your product and service, and how will you shift your offerings to the marketplace? We talked a little bit about this. This could be around delivery. It's really around understanding how to deliver in a way also that your customer can receive that product and service. So a lot of things for you to think about within that realm of products and services. Something else that's come up is making sure that whatever changes you are doing in your business, that you're thinking about the impact to your brand, particularly around reputation, but sort of think, what story do you want your clients and customers to say about you? What story do you want your teams to say about you? What story do you want the community to tell about you? So just make sure when you're making those changes that they're aligned with the brand reputation that you've worked hard to build and that you want to continue to have. Also make sure you're thinking about, are you creating new intellectual property? Make sure you're protecting anything, any new ideas, anything that you're building into your business. And then what education is required to communicate your changes? What has to happen? How do you need to educate internally and externally so that people understand what changes you're making and what it means to your business and to your brand? Okay, let's talk a little bit more about marketing and sales. But our jobs as marketers are to understand how the customer wants to buy and help them do so. Let's not forget that. That doesn't change in this. There are still customers out there. And the most important thing we have to understand is how they want to buy. The other thing I want to say about customers, the reality and the hard, sad truth is that businesses are closing. There are many businesses who have closed, will close. I'm on a mission to help as many as I can not do that. But for you as businesses, that means that there are more customers out there. The customers aren't going away. People still have needs and they will still buy. So I want you to think about that, especially when you think about your target market and maybe where your market is and how you've been marketing before. There will be a new set of customers that maybe weren't available to you before that are going to come into the fold for you. So you're also somewhat creating a new brand reputation and a new brand image for people that weren't buying from you before. So think about that you've got some new people that are coming into the fold, and how are you making sure that you're clear on things like your I'll call USP, if you're not familiar with that term, is your unique selling proposition. What makes you different than your competition? You want to be clear on why someone should buy from you versus somebody else. And you want to have the with them in your message. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's what's in it for me, meaning your customer's point of view. What's in it for your customer? We really want to be able to clearly articulate our unique selling proposition and help our customers and our prospects understand what value they get. So it's a value proposition, not a price proposition. If you're not clear on your unique selling proposition and you're not able to articulate that, you will always be competing on price. And so you really want to be clear on differentiating yourself here. You want to be clear on what changes are needed in your marketing budget. And you might be thinking, marketing budget, what marketing budget? Right now, more than ever, we need to market ourselves out of the crisis. I'm hearing people hold back on marketing. It's not the right time to market. I don't want to oversell. Don't let people shame you into not marketing and not selling. What you need to be doing is making sure that what you're marketing and what you're selling and how you're doing it is compassionate, is delivering a service that's needed. We have an obligation to continue to provide services and products to our community because people need things. And our job then is to market and to sell in a compassionate way that people are still able to get what they need and what they desire. And you need to think about how you'll engage your customers and interact with the market. So marketing is changing. You know, it's virtual, it's more social media. If those are not skills or things that you had in your business, your website, all of those things, now is the time to really think about, there's going to be a long period of time before maybe even hints of familiarity come back. And it may never fully come back, which is okay, right? We're all in this. Someone just shared when they got on the call today, I think it's their first Zoom call, right? We're all learning different ways to interact. We've got to continue to do that for our business and for be able to sell and market to our community. So other things around marketing, don't forget there's groups to communicate to. It's not just your current customers and it's not just prospects. So make sure that you're communicating and educating your existing customers. If you haven't already reached out to your existing customers and gave them a tap in some way, for some form or fashion, and let them know that you care, that you're still there, and how you're looking to deliver value for them, make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're reaching out to your former customers, even just to find out what needs they might have, educating them on any changes you've made in your business, just even letting them know you're open, you're not open, when you plan to open, how you plan to deliver. Make sure you're communicating all of those things. Communicating to your pipeline, your prospects, and your database. If you don't have a database, I'd say that's the #1 thing to start and create your database now. Without a database, you have no one to market to. And then new target markets. Like I said, depending on how you've pivoted your business, I've got a couple of businesses who they had a vision, maybe 3 to 5 years, to expand their geography outside of a certain, just Tampa. So this has really accelerated their ability to do that because they've been forced to figure out how to deliver differently, how to deliver virtually. And now that's created all new target markets for them. And so think about how have you created new target markets and how do you access them in your marketing pivots. And then lastly, it is around team. So what has to happen with your team as you make these changes? Resources are really leverage. Now, we don't always use our resources in the most optimized way, but right now we've likely been forced to leverage our resources in a more optimized way. Perhaps you've had to have some layoffs, some furloughs, changes, making sure that you are clear on how you're leveraging the resources so that you get the best leverage in your business right now. So what are the new tasks that have to be done? What other things need to be adjusted within the business? Can you deploy the team to cover all the tasks required? And skills, process, and training. Most of the businesses I'm coaching or business owners that I'm talking to have experienced at least some form of slowdown in the business. Some have had to shut down completely. Some have what I've called hibernate. And then actually some are growing faster than they thought they could have before. But now has been a great time for all of them to really reevaluate and create clarity on process, on skills, on the training that's necessary. So use this time to make sure that you're really honing in on those things for your team in order to advance the business from where it is now. And thinking about reallocating the resources, it's around roles and responsibilities. It's around systems and process. So think about systems. It could be some technology. As an example, Zoom, although I think many people are feeling a bit Zoom fatigued. But it's something that we're going to need in our business. But it could be around systems. It could be around communication processes. We now have team members who are different places. What communication tools are we putting in place? What's the process for us to talk to each other, to talk to clients? What's an escalation process? So how are you thinking about all of this in the business? There's opportunity and need to think about your inventory. Right? Make sure that you're doing some sort of inventory analysis. We want to move any of the slow or obsolete things that you have. I've got some clients who, we've called, the mothballing. We've got some inventory that we're mothballing right now because we know it's not going to move. Do we have our eyes on that? Do we know how our inventory is impacted? To make sure that you're keeping your eye on that. Any facilities and equipment. We've got some businesses who have, as an example, they have fleets, a lot of trucks, and their business was sort of in hibernation. And so they were able to partner with somebody else who needed some delivery, and they were able to sort of reallocate both some team members and the use of the trucks for that delivery to support another business and share in that revenue. So there's other ways to think about how do you reallocate some things going on in your business. And then finances, and here again, cash flow management. If nothing else, please make sure you know clearly what's happening in your cash flow. Because the other thing that's happened is, you know, particularly if you're not in if I pay up front type of business, in some cases, people are doing the work and then not getting paid. And so not only do you need to have a forecast of what you believe to be true, but we really need to stay on top of the cash that's coming in and out of your business. It's the way you can make the best decisions, because I know a lot of decisions are around people. And you want to make sure that you've got the best information so that you feel that you're making the right decision for the business, because they're going to be tough decisions to be made. So that's around the team pivots. And here's my last sort of major slide. And I know there's a lot here. And for some people, sometimes a visual is helpful. And the purpose of this slide is really to talk about our path to the opportunities ahead. So yes, we've got some crisis that has happened. Just like in the past, there's been other economic crises. There's seasons when you think about the economy. This does happen to be extreme, unprecedented. We will learn from it. But in all of them, you can think about them in a phased approach. And if you want to take a picture of this, I think this is something that's been helpful to people. The top of this is really around the personal areas for you to think about as we're going through a time like this. And then the bottom is really around the business, what things to consider in the business. So in the center are the phases. You don't necessarily, they're not necessarily one right after the other, as we know. In fact, like in our community, right, the community, what I may have before called sort of the warming up to sprint phase, where we're doing that in phases within our own community. So each area is a little bit different. But if you think about we were the shelter in place, perhaps a lockdown. Some people are still in this place, so making sure that you're focused on your family, your finances, your mindset, the things I talked about today. From a business perspective, making sure that you're caring for your staff, you understand the finances. Hopefully you've taken advantage of government assistance or really gotten clarity. I know in some cases that hasn't been available for some people, but being really clear on what is available. You think about the training, it's opportunity to think about vision and mission, your marketing strategies. So the point of this slide is really to help you think about, where am I? Where is my business? And what are some of the things that I can be doing within that phase? So just giving you a little bit more balance and control when you think about what's happening. Sometimes if we can't define something, or it's just left open-ended, it gives us anxiety or not clarity on where we're headed. What I can tell you for sure is that at some point we will get to the sprint phase. What I'm calling the sprint phase is where there's going to be this pent-up demand certainly for some businesses, salons, gyms, restaurants, and we're going to be in the sprint phase. And so we want to be ready for that. So make sure you're thinking through and taking action on those things. And then at some point we get back to compete and grow. And that's where you're back to what's the continuous improvement in your business, go back to your growth plans, and really working towards what we call at ActionCOACH a successful business, which is a profitable commercial enterprise that can work without you. I know we're not necessarily doing that work right now, but I guarantee that we will get to that phase. So just a picture for you to maybe help put things in perspective and give you a little bit more framework around what's happening within our environment. So with that, to finish up, a couple of things. I'm all about action. So I always say, no matter what, you committed your time today, you invested your time today, make sure you're taking some action. I always suggest, and I do this myself with anything I read or any webinar I attend or any type of training, what's at least 5 ideas that I can take action on today. I suggest you develop your 90-day plan. It's hard to think maybe much further out, but make sure that you've got a 90-day plan of action for yourself and your business. Make sure you continue to leverage the resources available through the Chamber of Commerce. Like I said, they've offered us lots of great stuff. and connect with Action Coach. So here's what I'm available to our community. I have been offering up pro bono hours. If you need someone just to run some ideas by, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a more formal opportunity that you have with me right now, but reach out to a coach if you're not sure. If we're not helping each other right now, it is our community of business owners that we have to watch out for right now. And that might be someone like myself, which my natural role is to help coach a business. It might be in the form of finding ways to serve our community in other ways. It's in a form of supporting other businesses, you know, buy local, buy gift cards. How can you help the community? So in any way, you know, how are we serving each other? So one way that I want to serve our community is just connect with Action Coach to help you there. And here's why. Here's what happens in a crisis. People will either feel that feeling of flight, fight, or freeze. My goal is to help you fight, right? We need to fight our way out of this, and we will. And you don't have to do it alone. You're here with another, you know, group of people. Leverage your resources, leverage the networking that's going on, but just make sure that you have a plan and you take action. So with that, make sure that we're taking action coming out of today. My goal is that you have an opportunity to take action. So here's the one thing I wanted to mention. I do a 2-hour strategy session, a strategy review that just helps you understand where you are today, what adjustments and pivots you need to make in your business. You know, clearly I talked more general and broadly today. There's things going on within your business, within your industry, that is going to be important that you figure out. What's your 3-year objective for your business? Right now, it might be hard to think that far out, but it's doable, and we need to have that vision. So let me help you get clarity on what that is, and what it means to you personally, and what obstacles you might encounter. And also, again, from there, have you walk out with a clear action plan so that you continue to advance your business. So I'm offering this to those on the call today. All you have to do is reach out to me. Here's my contact information. And so with that, that's what I had for you today. I'd like to move to any questions. We could do a little Q&A. If you could type your question in the chat box, or if we can manage to not have too much talk over, potentially just ask your question, but we can move to Q&A. Anybody have any questions?
I guess it depends on who you got it from.
Any questions? All right. I'm not seeing anything. You can use the chat box or ask any questions. All right, Erica, it doesn't look like any questions. I don't know if you wanted to have any closing comments.
Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you, Rose. We're so happy that you could come in and do this today for everybody. So a big thank you to you, a virtual round of applause for Rose. And I mean, I totally understand the taking a bunch of notes. I took a bunch of notes, and I think we're going to go over it in our chamber staff meeting tomorrow. So thank you so much. We'll leave it open for another 5-10 minutes. If anybody wants to has any additional questions or wants to connect with anybody in the room, feel free to do so. Okay. Thanks again, Rose.
Thank you. Thanks, Erica. Thanks, everyone.